moving on. Next question. At DAARK, at Dark982, question for Mr. Coulthart. What is your take on why the NHI do not just reveal themselves? Do you agree with the idea that there is an agreement for delayed or complete non-disclosure? Because if true, I would find that to be somewhat confusing behaviour on behalf of the NHI. I also think that if they were waiting for us to be ready, that maybe we wouldn't be seeing them in our skies, or maybe at all. Thanks for the work you do and hoping to hear your thoughts. Okay, Mr. Dark. I think there's a really interesting explanation that I'm beginning to hypothesize. This is only a speculative hypothesis on my part, but it is based on work that I am doing that is increasingly focusing on what I believe is a consciousness connection to the UAP phenomenon. I do think that there is a link between what we call psychic phenomena, telepathy, or psionics, as is the more neutral term that's used by the military and the defence community. I do believe that there is a connection between human psionic abilities, telepathic, psychic abilities, and consciousness, and that the UAP phenomenon is tied into that. And I suspect this is one of the largest reasons for why this is being kept secret and for why the NHI are not overtly showing themselves. And my growing hypothesis, it's just a hypothesis because there's a few things I can't tell you right now that I'm going to be reporting on in coming weeks, and I'm very excited to be bringing you that story. But I do know that the Air Force has been working on psionics for many, many decades. They never stopped investigating the power of the human mind and consciousness ever since the Stargate program and the remote viewing program. I know it's been poo-pooed. I know there's a George Clooney movie based on John Ronson's book called The Men Who Stare at Goats. And I know all the supposed debunkers say it's BS. But I can tell you, it's not BS. I've seen it for myself, and it's real. And in forthcoming weeks, you will see why I say it's real. And I believe the United States Air Force has knowingly deceived Congress, successive presidents, and the American public and the world about what it knows for far too long. It's time for this story to be told. Now, coming back to the question from Mr. Dark, I think the NHI are showing themselves in our skies to twig our consciousness, to make us humans aware of capabilities that many of us don't even realise we have. And I've seen those capabilities demonstrated in recent months. I know they're real, and I frankly don't give a flying fig what the debunkers or the skeptics or the trolls would say about that. It's real, and they will soon be eating humble pie. The capacity for the human mind to engage externally with some kind of uber consciousness has been speculated about in science. Go and have a look at the work on microtubules. Let's have a look at what modern science is speculating about a quantum connection between the human brain and an external consciousness. That's where we're going in this. So what if UAPs are merely a manifestation of something that is above and around us, a consciousness? Some might call it God. Yeah, I know, this is heavy stuff. But what if the purpose of its engagement with the human race is to slowly twig our awareness and to encourage us to use abilities that we don't even know we have? I'm very interested in hearing from people who were part of the GATE program 20 to 30 years ago, who found themselves in rooms with US Air Force officers and strange psychologists in white lab coats, showing them on occasion strange, apparently non-human objects. Yes, this has been happening. Young kids, prepubertal kids, have been misused in experimentation by our military in experiments designed to develop an understanding of how to engage with the phenomenon, with a consciousness. And I think at the same time that NHI consciousness is trying to engage with humanity individually. I've spoken to so many people. I had a message this morning from one person who's an very senior US Air Force person working in a very sensitive area, who told me that they had psychical abilities and they'd never spoken about it. But when they told me about their sighting of a gigantic craft, I said to them, by any chance, do you have psychic abilities? Have you ever had an intuition or a precognition? And they said they were very moved by my question because they'd never really spoken about it, but yes, they have. And everybody I talk to tells me about intuition, precognition, some kind of second sight, some kind of insight that gives them an ability to understand or engage with things in a way that humans can't quite understand. And I think that's what lies behind our understanding, or our growing understanding of the phenomenon. I think that if these are craft, if they are craft at all, they are a manifestation of a consciousness that is trying to engage with humanity. And I think, interestingly enough, the evidence that I am acquiring suggests that these craft can only be operated by people with those psionic abilities. Watch this space. More to come on this. Now, the other question from Mr. Dark was, are there agreements? And are those agreements perhaps constraining why and what we can be told? Now, that's a good question. As you know, if you were a watcher of the interview I did with David Grush back in June 2023, David Grush, to a very limited extent, referred into what he was allowed to reveal through his DOPSA, his Defence Office Pre-Publication Security Review. He referred to unspecified agreements. Now, I've been investigating that, and I do believe it's possible, plausible, I haven't confirmed it, that sections of the US military concluded agreements with a non-human intelligence. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if there was an agreement of non-disclosure, perhaps some kind of Star Trek-like prime directive where the NHI didn't want humanity informed. Wouldn't be surprised at all if that was the case. I haven't had it explicitly said to me, but I have had multiple sources refer to agreements. Okay, so let's just examine that. Firstly, if such an agreement was made, how could it possibly be legal? How could the whole planet be bound by an agreement that a bunch of jumped up, hubristic, arrogant men in the 1950s or the 1940s concluded with a non-human intelligence? Why would they have any right to make a decision on humanity's behalf? And moreover, if the Congress and certain presidents were not properly informed, as I am confident they were not, and in complete breach of Article 1 of the US Constitution, then those officers of the US Air Force are in serious breach of their oath to the US Constitution, which is an act of treason. Treason. That's what we're talking about here. So if these people are aware that people like myself and others are on their tail, and that disclosure is imminent, that Congress is now getting close, if I was you guys, I would be thinking very seriously about coming forward, because you are going to face treason charges if your government doesn't decide to exonerate you or put you before a Truth and Reconciliation Commission where you are given immunity in return for telling the truth. You face the very grave probability of criminal charges. And yes, I do think there are people who should be going to jail as a result of what I've learned about the legacy program. Experimentation on children, murder, intimidation, bullying, threats. Not a good look, guys.